Two things stood out in yet another 1-0 shutout loss by the Cincinnati Reds. The most egregious was the mismanagement by Terry Francona.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. My name's Stephen Offenbaker. His name's Jeff Carr. We love baseball. We love the Cincinnati Reds. We have been talking about them in podcast form for 14 combined seasons. We love talking Reds baseball with you. On today's show, a little bit later, we're going to talk about Chase Burns. That's right. And ask the question out loud, might he be forcing the Reds' hands a little bit somewhere along the way in regards to a major league promotion? We're also going to take a look at the tale of two lineups. One day it's 7 runs. The next day it's a shutout. One day it's 14 runs. The next day it's a shutout. One day it's 21 runs. And the next day it's a shutout. We're going to talk about this multi-personality lineup coming up a little bit later in the show. But where we are going to start, listen, Terry Francona is not immune to criticism, and he's going to get a little today because there were some decisions made in yesterday's game in Pittsburgh that were just downright mismanagement of the roster. Jeff and I are going to tell you all about that on today's show that is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Speaking of 50% off, Terry Francona was 50% off out in Pittsburgh yesterday, Jeff. We had the discount version, the bargain bin managerial team going on with this dugout because there were some clear-cut moves that should have happened. There were some situations, especially late, especially after TJ Friedl works a beautiful 10-pitch base hit to put the tying run on, and Santiago Espinal comes up facing a right-hander. Gavin Lux is on the bench. The problem, the man, the myth, the legend, the bumper car driver himself, Will Benson, was available on the bench. And Terry Francona did absolutely nothing.
I want to know, and there were, at least I scoured the post-game interviews to see if there was any answer as to if Will Benson just had an off day, and I am left to conclude that that was the case because he was not put into the ball game. I get it. He didn't play against Bailey Falter being a lefty. That's fine. I don't want to see that. I understand that. But when a righty comes into the ball game and there's an opportunity to get Will Benson into a game-changing moment, I don't understand the converse decision because I understood.
Let's just go with what Terry Francona said before we start picking this apart. Let's go with what he said because he was asked about it. To the beat writer's credit, they challenged Terry a little bit on this. And basically, Terry Francona said that Gavin Lux was not an option because he was getting some much needed rest. And that would have meant a pinch hit for Espinal would have meant that Lux needed to play third base. Charlie Goldsmith has it here. Terry Francona on not pinch hitting in the ninth says, SB is one of our best hitters. I was trying to give Lux some needed time off. If SB comes out, Lux is at third. I was trying not to do that. Lux was scratched due to back spasms the other day. And aside from Espinal, Lux is the only option at third base. That's not true. Spencer Steer spent a whole year in Major League Baseball playing third base. Spencer Steer was at first base in this game. Connor Joe was in this game and can play first base. Will Benson can go to the outfield. And if you really want to just get creative, you also had Austin Wynns, who has played first base for the Reds this year. It's simply not true. We did that in 10 seconds, and Terry Francona couldn't come up with it. It's mismanagement. He got it wrong. He messed it up. He didn't do it right. That's just the plain and simple truth.
What sort of brain device do you have that apparently the Reds dugout needs? How we came up with that solution? Oh, that's crazy. But no, I don't understand because, okay.
And wait. One more move. I want to pitch one more move. Because if someone wants to come at me and say, well, Spencer Steer's shoulder, we didn't want to risk hurting him, having him over there in the hot corner, having to make that long, hard throw across. Fine. Put Spencer Steer at second base, put Matt McClain at short, and move Ellie to third. That same lineup they played in 2023.
because in what you are saying points to this thought process. Aside from Espinal, Lux is the Reds' only option at third base. The next tweet that that Charlie added to kind of add some context to this was they didn't want, because Lux would have to come into the game to play third base if the Reds scored a run. And the problem is, if you're sitting here worried about what's next after you score a run, then that's just ridiculous. Score the run, figure it out after that, because we're not in a position where the Reds can play a game thinking, you know what, if this one doesn't work out, oh well. The Reds have already used up a bunch of those. We're kind of to the point in the season where they haven't used up every single one of those bullets, but there ain't many left, and they just used up another one of them here in Pittsburgh.
Terry Francona punted. And you don't get to punt after you just lost a series to the Chicago White Sox. You don't get to punt after you lost games you should have won against the Washington Nationals. You don't get to punt after you've blown opening day by bringing Ian Jabot in as the closer. You don't get to punt when you've done things like that. You're absolutely right, Jeff. They use those ups. They have used those more than they really should have at this point in the season. We have said time and time again, this team has to collect wins now because they're going to need them later on. And they continue to do these things that are just mind-boggling to me.
And I know that there is somebody saying, well, but they could have hit better against Bailey Falter. We'll get to that in a minute. But that points to the same issue that this issue is pointing to, and that is if Terry Francona doesn't believe that there's another person on this roster that can play third base other than Gavin Lux, that's a failure of the front office. And there's multiple things that are starting to point to questions surrounding the building of this roster. I mean, we'll get into it in a little bit, but hitting against left-handed pitching has been a problem for years. And you can make a case of, well, for a couple of years, they weren't really trying there. Okay, what are they doing now? Because they are trying. And they still can't hit left-handed pitching. I saw so much of that game, and then when the Reds got to the ninth inning, and then let's take one other aspect from this. Okay, let's say for a minute there's absolutely no confidence in Spencer Steer playing third base, and they don't want Gavin Lux in the game. Santiago Espinal has to bat come hell or high water, then bunt. Terry Francona's favorite thing to do. And I hate calling for bunting. Steve, you know, I've said it before, like I'm in a hostage situation if I am advocating for bunting. But if you can't remove Santiago Espinal from the equation and you have to have him bunt, or you have to have him bat, then have him bunt. He has a .299 on base percentage. He has a Billy Hamilton on base percentage against right-handed pitching this year. It's just it's silly to leave him in the ball game and expect him to hit away.
But let's be clear, Jeff. There were other people to play third base. This is the first time in the Terry Francona era that I feel like the Reds are doing that same old thing that they do, where they look at a camera and they look at a reporter and they tell us something that we can figure out is not true in 10 seconds and expect us to just, oh, okay, that must be right. That's not right. There was multiple options, multiple ways to get Espinal out of this game, to get Benson into this game, and let Gavin Lux continue to sit in his Barco lounger or whatever it is he needed to do to rest his back. There were at least 3 different moves to get Benson in the game and not play Gavin Lux. So I know that you and I both know baseball pretty well, but I also can't imagine, you can't tell me that Francona and Calgill and J.R. House and Freddie Benavides couldn't all huddle up down there on a step and come up with the same 3 options that we did that didn't involve Gavin Lux. It's just he punted, and someone needs to call him on it. He punted.
And one more point to Spencer Steer over Gavin Lux at third base. How many career games does Spencer Steer have at third base, Steve?
He played the whole first year at third base. He's probably got
total
100 games at third base.
Well, not that many, but a total of 47. Total of 47 games in 2023 at third base. How many games does Gavin Lux have at third base? Over, under 47?
Under. Way under.
Way under. 3. He has 3 total games at third base, Steve. If that is what we are looking at and saying that's our only option at third base, then the roster is a big question mark. And there's another reason why we got a big question mark on the roster, and it reared its ugly head on Tuesday night. And it's a guy who can throw a ball with his left hand. You ever checked your bank account and been like, man, where'd that money go to? Monarch Money can help you out with that, because Monarch Money is this amazing website that can put all of your accounts in one place. That way you see everything that's going on, whether it's your debit account, whether it's your credit account, whether it's your investments accounts. You've got them all on one screen. You don't have to remember all the various passwords and different login information. I mean, I always get so confused with all that stuff. I'm glad my phone keeps some of that together, but Monarch Money can make it easy for you. You got one login, you got all your accounts and all that information in one place. Seriously, I cannot recommend this enough to just see it all in one spot. That's monarchmoney.com. Check out the website today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com to get 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Thanks as always for making us your first listen every single day. And if you're an everydayer, thank you so much for being an everydayer. If you're not, become an everydayer by hitting that subscribe button here on YouTube or on your favorite podcasting app. We're seriously on all of them out there. All right, Steve, there was another thing. I mean, the late game management on Tuesday night was abysmal, but it was all set up by the fact that the Reds just couldn't hit. Drum roll, please. Cy Young, no. Nolan Ryan, no. Bailey Falter, a guy who in his career against the Reds in a handful of starts had an ERA of over 8. And this season has had an issue with walks. How many walks did the Reds draw last night, Steve?
With me looking at the box score, let's see. I
0.
See none.
I'll help
I
you out
see
there.
Goose eggs. I see
no
not a
walks
single
last night.
solitary extra free base.
No walks, and also too, like if you watch the game closely, like I do, I love to torture myself with this, but when you watch the game closely, you could tell there was a game plan. Bailey Falter and Joey Bart, the Pirates catcher, came into the game and said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to just absolutely fill up the inner half of the plate against right-handed hitters, because the Reds put 8, including Ellie De La Cruz, who hits switch hitting, 8 right-handed hitters in the lineup against Bailey Falter. By the way, Bailey Falter, for his career, has reverse splits, so that's something in and of itself. But filling up the zone against the right-handed hitters, the Reds got 4 hits. He never changed his philosophy, and Cowboy and John Sadak were really highlighting it well on the television broadcast, like, here it comes, he's throwing inside again, here it comes, better turn on it, here it comes, inner half of the zone, and they never adjusted. And this team now, Steve, for the season, is hitting 209 against left-handed pitching.
It continues to be a problem. And for me, I wonder the lack of flexibility, the lack of adjustments from this team is starting to get a little irritating, actually. We hear the experts in the booth talk about it. You and I talk about it. We look at the numbers. And there were some simple fixes. The simple fix for Falter last night was to move back 6 inches in the box and be able to get around on that inside pitch.
Open the stance
and force him to adjust. Pete Rose used to say this thing, and you never change your swing. You either move forward, you move back, you move in, or you move out, but you never change your swing because the swing is what made you a big leaguer. Those are Pete's words. I just can't help but feel if guys had moved away from the plate 6 inches, Falter would have changed his game plan really quick and you could have thrown him off his game. But nobody did anything different to try and break it up. They just lived out the definition of insanity inning after inning after inning. They did the same things, expecting a different result.
And I don't know. And honestly, and I'm sure Our friend Gary Morgan over at Locked On Pirates is probably having a good show. I don't necessarily know that he's asking too many questions about this game, but if I were him, I'd be asking the question, why on earth they even took Bailey Falter out of the ball game? He only threw 79 pitches. Like, the other part about this was he was ridiculously efficient. There were guys walking into that batter's box, swinging away on a guy who's had just the worst kind of year when it comes to issuing bases on ball. I mean,
I was surprised too, Jeff. I really thought he had complete game shutout written all over him.
Because we say, right, and we say that, you know, looking at the kind of guy that we want to be, like, if he's going to strike out a little, he's got to walk hardly any. He's almost averaging 4 walks per 9. And that's a guy that you've got to make him throw pitches, and he just weren't doing it. There were some pitch. I'm not going to harp on this too much that the umpires seemed to kind of give him some strikes on, but ultimately it was a lack of adjustment. And this just feeds into our frustration. Like, there's a lot of people that are probably thinking, well, you guys are getting frustrated about a team that's now been shut out 1-0 like 4 times this year. They've been shut out a total of 8 times. What do you expect? We've seen him score 24 runs. We saw him score 7 runs the day before. Like, why does it have to be so Jekyll and Hyde with the run production with this lineup?
I think it's one part inflexibility, one part they're still not putting each player in the best position to be successful. And we saw that with some of the mismanagement stuff we talked about there in the first segment. This team, and really, the only thing that this team has been consistent at for years now is being inconsistent. That's the only thing they do consistently is Jekyll and Hyde every single series, Jekyll and Hyde every single season. And it just, if we sound frustrated, it's because we are. I am frustrated at this team that should just blow the doors off of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Just 9 out of 10 times should blow their doors off. Get shut out by the Pittsburgh Pirates.
There's a greater than 0%. There's a greater than 0% of the fan base that is wondering if they're going to trade Paul Skeens this year. That's how bad they are right now. Mm-hmm. You got to beat a team like that. They were booing their guys in the 8th and the 9th inning on Monday. And now on Tuesday, the Reds can't score. And they had multiple opportunities. I mean, the first inning was the first opportunity because TJ Friedl led off with a triple. Very first at bat of the game, he hits a triple, and he doesn't move. There was
0 for 6.
There was nothing there. And then later on, you had
with runners in scoring position.
Yeah. It's just ridiculous. That at one point, I think, and obviously, the Baltimore game skews this because they were just ridiculous that day, ridiculously good with runners in scoring position. But at that time, Steve, they were hitting like 290 with runners in scoring position. They are down to 240 as a team with runners in scoring position. They are inching toward the bottom third of the league. And I think that can sum up why we have seen this stretch of baseball. That, yes, they just won 5 in a row, and this one loss should not have us as frustrated as we currently are. But the reason that we are as frustrated as we currently are is that it's so easy. It looked like it was so easy to win that game. They were 1 or 2 swings away from a win, and they never got that 1 or 2 swings. They didn't have anybody step up and do it.
It's hard because you look at them now after the loss last night. They're again back at 500. They are 25-25. And you don't have to look very hard for this team to be 30-20 right now. You don't have to try real hard to find those 5 wins where they just kind of blew it. And that's where the frustration comes from. And then you end up making these games against teams like the Pirates, games against teams like the White Sox matter so much more than they ever should because you continue to just not get it done in a way that you absolutely have to get it done. And I don't like being this guy. I don't like being the one that has to be critical of this team. And, you know, Auntie Darlene, I'm going to hear about it, Jeff. I'm going to hear about us being negative. She's going to call me up and be like, why are you guys being so negative? It's right. because we see the potential for this team to win this division this year. We see the potential for this team to be a playoff team. And by the way, that's the only way they're going to be a playoff team is to win this division. They're not going to wild card it. It's not going to happen. So it's frustrating to sit back and know that they have within them the capabilities to be relevant. And yet here we are once again at 500, hoping somebody figures something out. And it just, I'm tired of being this guy. Win some ball games so I can just be rah-rah. I want to be.
Yeah. And it's on top of just great. I mean, I'm going to say it, great pitching, which
fantastic.
I think we have to ask the question, at least answer the question about Chase Burns, because he continues to just burn up the minor leagues. Is he forcing this? Are we going to see him in the major leagues sooner than we expected? We'll discuss that coming up next.
If you can't watch us here on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed in all of the audio feeds. We're on really every single podcasting app out there. And if you find one we're not on and you need us to be on, message Jeff. He can make that happen for you. We got lots of great Reds content coming your way. Jeff and I 5 days a week on Locked On Reds. Tim Daniel after each and every game on the Reds postcast, all 162 games. Lots of Reds content. Make sure you're subscribed. All right, Jeff, it's an interesting question. Is Chase Burns going to force their hand? He's going to force their hand to move him to Louisville. That is almost a given. He is not going to be in Chattanooga much longer at all. I see him.
If it was for one more start, to be honest with you.
I see him on the exact same trajectory this year that Rhett Lauder was on last year. And let me be clear what I mean by that. Rhett Lauder lit it up at Dayton. He performed really well in Chattanooga. He got to Louisville. He was doing his thing. And as everybody knows, he got that late season call up to the bigs, right? That only happened because it was break glass in case of emergency. If you remember, every single person that ever had pitched for the Cincinnati Reds seemed to get hurt all at the same time. There was no pitching. There were no options. It had to be Rhett Lauder. They started his clock. He performed well, to his credit. And here we are. They're going to handle Chase Burns how they wanted to handle Rhett Lauder. And that is get him to Louisville, let him continue to learn, and not start his clock. The only reason we would see Chase Burns this year, and Jeff, you can disagree me if you think I'm off on this, but I don't think there's any chance we see him barring another pitching Armageddon like we saw last year, where just every single body else is hurt.
No, I agree with you, because right now the Major League pitching staff is on fire. I mean, here recently they have been every bit the part of what we expected and hoped. Honestly, hoped. I don't even know that I expected them to be as good as they have been here recently, Steve, because we're talking about a team that, albeit the results have been a little mixed, but honestly, for the last month, you're looking at a group of guys that has put together an ERA that is 3.34. Like barely over 3 runs a game. I said that if the Reds could just average around 4.5 runs a game, they'd be golden. That's dead on with how they've pitched this season. In fact, for the year, their ERA isn't much higher. For the year, it's 3.5. And that's as a staff. That's not just the starting pitching staff. That's not just the bullpen. That's everybody combined. And when you look at the baseball reference page for the Reds this season, the majority of the top players are pitchers. And that's rightfully so, based on how we've been frustrated with the lineup and its inconsistency. But the consistency of the pitching staff has driven this team forward.
And I want to circle back to what you're talking about with Chase Burns. Let's be specific. He's made a total of 7 starts this season in the Reds minor leagues. Oh boy, howdy. In those 7 starts, he's thrown 30 2/3 innings. His strikeout per 9 is 14.1. His walk per 9 is 2.1. He is absolutely obliterating every single minor league hitter that he faces. And now look, that's what he's supposed to do, but he's barely breaking a sweat right now, Jeff. Like, he is barely breaking a sweat pitching in these games. I think you're right. Maybe one more start in Chattanooga and he's Louisville bound. And I would like to see how he continues to progress from there.
His most recent start for Chattanooga, 5 innings, 7 strikeouts, 1 walk. And there's a reason that we're really just talking about strikeout to walk ratio because, when you're playing in the minor leagues, you kind of have some iffy defense behind you. Although Chattanooga, pretty good roster, he only gave up 2 hits, only gave up 1 run. And I'm not going to quote ERA because minor league ERA doesn't mean anything when you're talking from a prospect angle. But he is just absolutely mowing guys down. Yeah, and that's the other question for me, Steve. The first question is, where is the spot on this roster that he could take? Mm-hmm. And the other question for me is when he gets to Louisville, what happens? Because when Rhett Lauder got to Louisville, there was a bit of an adjustment period. Mm-hmm. His first couple of starts weren't all that great, and then he settled in. Is there going to be that for Chase Burns? Because when you get to AAA, you got some dudes that have been to the major leagues before, have seen higher pitching before. How does his pitching compare to those guys at bats? That's really going to be interesting for me. But I think when you put the two questions together, I don't necessarily know that anything about his timeline making it to the major leagues has shortened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm still convinced he will vie in spring training for a start, yes. a spot in the starting rotation.
Oh,
I don't think we'll see him this year. I don't think we'll see him this year unless there's a crisis.
Because there's 2 guys, well, 1 guy, because Brady Singer is still under team control for 1 more season, but Nick Martinez doesn't currently have a contract past this season. He has voiced his desire to have such a contract. I don't necessarily know if we see that happen, because I think the Reds looked at this and they said, all right, even if he did accept the qualifying offer, then we just got him for 1 year. And we got Chase Burns, we got Chase Petty, we got Rhett Lauder, we got, all these other guys. We got Julian Aguiar coming off injury, Brandon Williamson coming off injury. There's going to be a lot of guys that they can put into this rotation conversation, even if they lose Nick Martinez. And then what do you do with Brady Singer as well? Could you flip him for a big bat if you needed to? There's definitely some options that you have there, and Chase Burns is the reason that there are options. But I don't think it's because he's going to be in the major leagues in June. And in June, July, I'd be surprised if we don't see. Maybe he gets a cup of coffee in September, but that's all.
No, I don't even see that. I don't even see that unless there's a crisis. I'll tell you what's much more likely. One of the 2 guys you just mentioned, Singer or Martinez, if Rhett Lauder is back and available and pitching well off of this injury, one of those 2 guys you flip at the trade deadline and bring in a bat. That's what you do.
Maybe
you trade one of Singer or Martinez, get your bat, and you put Rhett Lauder in the rotation.
That feels like another segment. Maybe not get into that too much here right now, but no.
like me to hold off on that, Jeff? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we'll hold the horses back in the stable on that one. But yeah, I think that Chase Burns has been very impressive. And quite frankly, if you can get to Chattanooga, which honestly, I think at this point you want to actually set your GPS to Louisville, not Chattanooga. But if you can get down there and see him pitch, it's going to be a treat because seeing some of his highlights have just been magical.
And that's kind of all we've got going for us in the minor leagues right now is the pitching of Mr. Chase Burns. Things have been bad. Look, I know for the everydayers that are still here, it's the 3rd segment, Jeff. We got a minute here to play with. For the everydayers that have been here with us for a long time, I know you guys are all out there going, what is wrong with you 2? What is going on? This is supposed to be the Rainbows and Kittens podcast. This is supposed to be where everybody comes to feel good. And we're going to get back to that. I am a little frustrated with this team that should be winning more games than it's winning. And I was told this was the year. So yeah. I am ready for this to be a year. I am not going to just, continue to go after Francona and go after these guys, but I am going to call it out when I see it. Last night was one that just couldn't be ignored, but don't worry. We're going to get back to being full of sunshine and rainbows and kittens and all the things that you all expect from Jeff and I. It's coming. We're going to be there. We're going to do it. We're going to deliver.
Without a doubt. And that is a great bombshell to end this episode on. Thank you so much for checking out today's Locked On Reds podcast. If you're not an everydayer and you got to this point, hit subscribe. At this point, makes no sense that you aren't subscribed if you got all the way here. Become an everydayer because we're going to be with you every single day. And you can check out Tim Daniel. He goes live at the end of every Reds game with the Reds postcast. giving you the immediate take on what just happened in the ball game, and then we will be in your feeds the next morning because we are always locked on Reds. And I don't know, Steve, maybe we will have that conversation about could the Reds flip one of Brady Singer and Nick Martinez on the next podcast. So maybe hit that subscribe button just so you don't miss that one as well, because we are Locked On Reds every single day. Started to fall into the T's there.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be on Terry Francona's Christmas card list this year.
No, it's Terry Francona and probably Connor Joe either. I don't know
if you knew this, but he's the manager, not a coach.
I've heard.